sure the capture has to get reset for us real quick, guys. Sorry about that. Restart. Bang! There we go. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to our 15th episode of A Week Ahead with me, Liam, and my friend Tommy. Yep. Well, it's over 3 months. We're approaching 4 months. 4 times 4. We did have one month. We did have one 5 month in there. I'll give you that one. 5 week month, yeah. Oh no, Tom. I think you're muted, Tommy. We gotta restart. Dude, yeah. Sorry, Tommy. 1 second. Yeah. And my mouse is stuck on my Mac. Okay, 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Tommy. Sorry about that, guys. Want to see if Tommy's in.
Okay.
Yep, they can hear you now, Tommy.
Everything good?
Yep, we're gonna restart real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Welcome to a 50th episode of A Week Ahead with me and my buddy Tommy.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the 15th episode. It's hard to believe it's been several months. I'm joking because I said the wrong amount of months the last time.
They did. They probably didn't know
Liam
what was
giving me
going on.
Yeah, he's giving me some crap on, but us JDs, we're not known for our simple add, addition, subtraction, multiplication. So
Knowing
I'm
how
gonna
many
go with
weeks are in a
several
month,
months. It's been
yeah,
fun.
hard stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
It happens.
But it's been fun doing the show, and looking forward to the topics we're going to discuss today.
Yep. Currently, it's June 16th, 2025. For today, I don't know if this was updated. I think it was, but it didn't rain today.
Yeah,
So
it's
I might.
updated.
All right, that works. It's gonna rain tomorrow. High 78, low of 66. Wednesday rain, light clouds, 81, 68. Thursday, the same as Wednesday, light clouds and some rain, 75, 61. Friday would be sunny with light clouds, 77, 61. Saturday would be a hot day, 81. Low of 70, sunny light clouds. Sunday, same as Saturday, sunny light clouds, but high at 87. Lowest 72. So Sunday's going to be a real hot one. I'm so excited for that. The rain's been helping with the plants. Haven't had to water too much. So that's nice. It didn't seem like it rained too much. I don't think it rained at all today. So hopefully it might not rain tomorrow. And Tommy will have stocks. We have stocks above us as well and whatever below us.
Yeah, stocks are down. So this is a recap from last week's stocks. So Dow's down 1.38%, Nasdaq's down 0.85%, S&P 500's down about 0.5%, 0.46%. So still going down here with all this uncertainty going on.
Yep. And we have for daily stocks for today. They were up a little bit today, though. Like 0.7, 1.8. It looks like 1.1 and 0.34. So light tends up today. Tommy will be going through our first topic. We have a decent amount of topics today. We have, I think, one extra or two extra. So be a long one, not too long though.
Yeah.
So Tommy will go into our first funny topic.
Yeah, so we got two extra topics today. We got an international news topic and an extra national news topic. But our funny news topic today is Trump's to sell his Tesla. As you remember, in March 2025, Donald Trump did that photo op sort of commercial like advertisement in front of the White House with Elon Musk, where Elon Musk encouraged Donald Trump to purchase a Cybertruck. And ultimately, the president, Trump, ultimately settled on a 2025 red, of course, Tesla Model S Plaid to show his support for Elon Musk and his companies. So, fast forward here a couple months, things have broken down between Trump and Elon. Elon has been criticizing Trump's big, beautiful bill, his spending bill that he's trying to ram through the U.S. Senate right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Elon was very critical of that. So Trump being Trump, he's gonna lash out. He's gonna try to stick a knife in and twist it to try to prove that he's the big tough guy, and he's gonna go out there and tell the world that he's gonna sell his Tesla to make a point. Trump couldn't even drive the car, of course. It says in this news article that it was only driven by like White House staff and stuff, so he couldn't even drive the car, of course.
Because
Um,
I feel like Biden
and
couldn't drive his Corvettes enough, and when you're president, they don't allow you to drive. So that makes sense.
right, yeah, like and certain presidents have they have like large like facilities where they drive, but they're like airports essentially. They're closed off for their large ranches, so presidents can drive, but normally that's like not a sitting president. Um, but yeah, so at the end of the day, Trump's going to sell this Tesla. The White House confirmed he no longer wants to keep the vehicle. So I guess the marriage between Trump and Elon is officially done.
Yep. So that's good. I kind of like that, and like it says here too, I like how they're saying, but like since demand for Teslas are down, even though it's Trump, it's gonna have a good value. Some crazy Trump supporter's gonna buy it for probably a decent amount of money. It's crazy he'll give up this Tesla, but he won't give up the plane he's getting for free or giving it to the government because he's gonna keep it for his library. So that's funny.
Yeah.
And like you
Well,
put here for further
it's just
details, they could look up on a Car and Driver, Wall Street Journal, or the Post. Go on.
yeah. Uh, I was initially tipped off to this news story by a car podcast I watch by Doug DeMiro's People, who's a YouTuber, and he runs this car auction site called Cars and Bids, and he does a YouTube channel with that and does a podcast through it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was that they were talking about Trump was going to sell his Tesla. And they were like trying to encourage him, like, "Hey, sell it on our website. Sell it on our website." They were talking a lot like, "Is the car,
Cars
what's
and
the car
Bids,
gonna
so
be
you
worth?"
get that percent. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
want.
mean,
I
I'm sure
wonder.
the car does have some value.
Do you have to sell it? Do you have to?
I
Do
mean,
you
I
have
would
to
not
sell
have.
it on like for a government website, like for government used car lot website? Because there's always
I don't
websites for
know.
that. That'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
like how you would buy like an old police car or something like that, like
Yeah,
like an old like if you want to be an asshole, it'd be that person that drives that 2003
Crown
uh
Vic or
police interceptor,
people that
Crown
even
Vic
buy.
police
People
interceptor.
have like because you could even get for Charger ones for cheap. Um, that's funny.
Give me my next vehicle. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna buy a silver Dodge Charger. I'm gonna put some headlight protectors on that thing, like some roll bar things on the front of it. I'll be good.
But you're not a Fed. That sounds like something a Fed would do, Tommy.
Oh, come on. Okay. Okay, back to the news story. So, this is just absolutely insane that, we even got to this point that Donald Trump, brought in this oligarch to, run the so-called Department of Governmental Efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, you're a billionaire, you're the richest man alive, and you're going to enter in politics. That's going to affect your businesses. You're going to affect your customers. You're going to piss off your customers. You're going to,
Mm-hmm.
your investors are not going to be happy, etc. So the fact that this seemingly wasn't even thought through by Musk, like, hey, this might affect my businesses, and then Trump had to like counter and be like, oh, I'm gonna go out right in front of the Rose Garden and show these Teslas to try to help my buddy out, but now he's not my buddy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The way the whole thing just went down is strange.
So quick too, and it was
Strange.
funny too because I know you like F1. There was a rumor that like Trump was gonna drive a McLaren, probably at Texas, and McLaren had to like release a statement that they're not doing that because people thought, yeah,
Good for McLaren.
So that's just Trump and
Yeah.
car news, I guess, this week. Since we got a lot, we can go to
Yep.
our national topic news one, which is Trump's military parade and the No Kings protests. On June 14th, Flag Day, President Trump celebrated his 79th birthday alongside the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary with a grand military parade in Washington, D.C. The event featured over 6,000 troops, armored vehicles, and helicopters from modern to past. Despite stormy weather, the parade proceeded as planned, showcasing American military history and strength. Just some quick key takeaways. Of a display of military might amidst stormy weather, the parade included historical uniforms, tanks, aircraft, aiming to highlight the Army's evolution. Notable participants included 34 horses, 2 mules, let's go mules, a Buell Hilo dog named Doc Holliday, Nationwide no protests erupted from that. No King's protests, organized by the 50501 movement, took place in over 2,000 cities across 50 states. Demonstrators opposed what they perceived as authoritarian actions by the Trump administration, including military deployments against domestic protest and controversial policies like ICE, and what ICE has been doing. The protest conceded with a parade, highlighting the nation's political divisions, contrasting national events reflecting deeper diversions. While Washington, D.C. hosted a military parade, the rest of the country witnessed widespread demonstrations. And I think there was some in D.C. too, because I think Trump was asked, or Pam Bondi was asked if they would do anything against them. For what is that word? What?
The juxtaposition. So yeah, just
This
the
guy,
juxta under
Tom, you
the
know I can't read
juxtaposition.
that word. What is that? That is a word. Juxt. That's not a word, bro. We're in America. Um,
Okay, hey, buddy, we're even now. You called me out for my math. Okay, we're good now. We're good.
Talking about it for some fancy words in here. You probably just changed that too. Yuck, yuck. All right. Understood the nation's polarized political climate with celebrations of military strength contrasting with public dissent. Um, Basically, the conclusion is in the event served as a stark reminder of deep political rifts in the United States with a grand military display in the Capitol against a military nationwide protest challenging presidential authority. I watched a lot of some of the Young Turks because they were watching C-SPAN. C-SPAN actually showed the crowd. They weren't like Fox and not showing the crowd. But from the No Kings protest, they're saying it might be 4 to 5 million people in total throughout the country were protesting.
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear. And I think they're saying like it was like 250,000 people at the parade, maybe. And like
No, it's less than that.
based on a lot of the photos, it did not look like that. It looked like softball bleachers, and like really only the first few rows were filled. So it was nothing crazy. A lot of the old vets I know, and I'm not saying like older guys. It's like there's vets my age and there's vets that are older. A lot of times the older ones are a little bit more wiser in certain things, but they were definitely opposed to it, and even a lot of the younger ones, because they kind of understand that there's better ways to be spending this money. Kind of like what I said last week. Um, they said it was going to be around 45 million. It's probably going to be way more. I wouldn't be surprised, especially after overtime paid for officers themselves, and then also the policing the area. So a lot of that money could have went back to veterans programs and veteran assistance. They cut thousands of jobs from the VA this year, and like I've seen it in my job, in my own personal like side of work, where like it's very hard to get a hold of the VA, and it used to not be like that, even working with them. So that's good to see. But they definitely need some help. So I don't know if a parade's the best thing forward, especially if a stormy weekend. Like they're not gonna make that much money. At least a stormy day. I don't know if Sunday was better. It wouldn't have been on Trump's birthday, so that probably would have hurt him. But I think that would have been a little bit better. And his speech was just kind of whack, so I'm not gonna go over that too much. Not much to it. He and like his voters said this too, that like he was actually gonna be like less divisive, but he still is. He's still talking about Joe Biden and stuff that doesn't matter when he needs to be focused on his actual presidency. So like I kind of said last week, I think this was more for Trump, and this having that parade, all the fireworks, all of his friends and family there. It was just a spectacle, and I get it. Like I like history, but all of that's a museum. You don't really learn history that much through parades. Kind of like the whole thing with museums versus statues. You could just learn stuff in museums. I've seen in Columbus there a beautiful Veterans Museum, where you learn a lot more, even evolutionally, and like throughout the years. But you learn a lot more about the soldiers, which I feel like is more important than the actual military strength and nationalism.
So I think there's several things wrong with this news story. The first thing is just the whole concept of the United States doing a military parade. So the last time the United States did a military parade was in the 1990s after the Gulf War under George H.W. Bush. So like there was it's been quite a long time, and they're just sort of generally disfavored in the United States. Um, you know, other countries, North Korea,
And this
the Russian
reminds me of, you remember
Federation.
George Bush, the
Um,
photo with him on the military battleship, mission accomplished or whatever, and it wasn't even
yeah,
accomplished yet.
yeah, yeah,
And we're about to go into where Iran, so I mean, it's gonna be fun. Mission's
yeah,
definitely not accomplished, guys, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
yeah. No. So there's these other countries like obviously the Soviet Union did it, the Russian Federation. They do that giant World War II victory fest. China does it. North Korea does it. The variety of authoritarian nations around the world, they like to do this. They like to roll out their nuclear weapons, roll out their missiles. Goose walk their soldiers down their nation's capital. And I just think generally it's something that should be um, not be done in the United States of America. There's a right there's definitely a correct way to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. And that might even include a parade. You know what I mean? It might not include a parade, with armored vehicles and tanks and stuff like that. But there's a right way to do this, and a large scale military parade in the nature of authoritarian nations is certainly not the way to go about doing it. I also kind of feel bad for the service members who were dragged into this. I'm sure many of them, are proud of their service, and they're proud of the Army's 250th anniversary, and they're sort of discouraged or upset that their service is now being brought into politics in that sort of way. As for the actual attendance of the parade itself, I heard that they got nowhere near their 250,000 goal. I saw the same videos. You could see the sidewalks, you could see the grass. There was people playing frisbee on the National Mall. So this event was not well attended. Likewise, you had 200,000 people show up in New York City, and you had 100,000 people show up in Philadelphia to protest the authoritarian actions of the Trump administration, which ironically kind of includes like a military parade, like military parade authoritarianism. They kind of go hand in hand. So, he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really doing himself any favors there. And of course, it was on his birthday too, making him all about himself, sort
Yeah.
of a hallmark of an authoritarian leader, cult of personality. Um, so no, it's just really crazy. Ultimately, I feel bad for the service members. I'm very happy that the parade was not as well attended as the protests.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And there's better things happening this year too. There's a traveling basically like museum for the Vietnam Wall Memorial in D.C. Because
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of marble, or it might be black granite, but I'm pretty sure it's black marble. And they just take it out, and they've been moving it around. It was in Warren for a little bit. So there's a lot better things that you could just go and learn about local history. Go to your local VFWs, give them money, like all that kind of stuff. Find out what you could do volunteer wise. So I don't know. Like I agree, it's a
But
lot of
I think
authoritarian
also
and a
just
waste of money when they could be helping these soldiers out.
yeah, I imagine if you wanted to thank the soldiers for their service, $45 million divided amongst the service members, both current and retired, would go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ways to honor our veterans, to thank them for their service, and
Good
there's
point.
other
Yeah.
ways to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Army that doesn't involve authoritarian action. So, like, I
Mm-hmm.
was watching an interview a couple days ago by Rand Paul, Republican from Tennessee, sort of a fiscal hawk. And he was asked, the press was asking him in that weird sort of underground train system under the Capitol, uh, Senator, what do you think about the military parade? And even Rand Paul was like, hey, I'm just generally not in favor of spending $45 million to have our soldiers goose walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. Like people understand this, but apparently Trump doesn't.
Yeah, especially because like we are all about freedom. So let the soldiers have their freedom, not have to like all get together for a parade. Like you're saying, bonus would do way better. There's a lot of things. I said last week how like the whole Biden plan was like way scaled down than this. So I mean, there could have been better ways to do it and still keep funding. We're talking about they talk about Doge and all these cuts, and we can't be spending, and then his bill's two will add 2 trillion to the debt. So I mean, that's all they're trying to do is just add to the debt and lie to people. So are you ready to go to our second topic?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So this is our second national topic. So this continues the crusade that the government has against Mr. Garcia. So last week, Mr. Garcia was brought back into the United States from El Salvador, sort of sort of discounting the government's whole argument that they lack the ability to bring them back because they ultimately did bring Kilmar
We
Garcia
don't know
back.
where he's at.
So
We can't find
yeah, we don't
him.
know where he's at. We can't bring him back.
Yeah.
1 month later, we're going to bring him back. So quick recap: Mr. Garcia, Kilmar Garcia, Salvadorian man, was wrongly deported from the U.S. to El Salvador, despite a court order protecting him, and then he was brought back, as I just said. So on June 13th, 2025, Mr. Garcia appeared in federal court in Nashville, marking his first opportunity to confront the charges against him. He pleaded not guilty to 2 counts: conspiracy to transport undocumented migrants and unlawful transportation of undocumented migrants. The charges stem from an alleged operation involving over 100 trips transporting migrants from Texas to Maryland and other states since 2016. So, evidence in defense: prosecutors presented a 2020 traffic stop. Prosecutors presented a 2022 traffic stop in Tennessee as evidence, where Mr. Garcia was driving a vehicle with 9 passengers, all appearing to be undocumented migrants. However, no charges were filed following the incident. His defense team has labeled these charges as preposterous, questioning the credibility of the evidence and suggesting the case may be politically motivated. So, I just think this is absolutely insane.
I agree. Yeah, and I thought like if you don't charge someone with someone, you can't charge them later. Or like, I don't know. I always felt like if you were like investigating someone, you couldn't like find another crime and then charge them with that crime. You have to charge them with a crime you're investigating them for. But I might be totally wrong on that.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. But what's so crazy about this is again, as I outlined earlier, the government defeated its own argument that they could not bring back Mr. Garcia. They brought him back.
Mm-hmm.
And what's just so insane about this is it really just does seem like to me, and I'll be completely transparent with the viewers. I did not pull up the docket. I did not read the briefs. I read a news article. I did not look at the public information as it relates to this case, sort of read it all. But it really just like their evidence is a 2022 traffic stop where they didn't charge anybody. That just seems kind of crazy to me. It seems like that they're trying to, bring him back in the United States because they admitted that Mr. Garcia was wrongfully deported. Mm-hmm. So that now they're trying to bring him back and try to cook something up so they can do this the right way.
Yep.
It's just,
and it's weird.
It's just sort of ridiculous.
How, if they're all undocumented, none of them were taken in, how do they know? Like, how could they get witnesses? You know what I mean? Like, is it just the only evidence they're ever gonna have is a video? That I don't know if you should be trying, putting someone on trial for that. That's my opinion. Unless it's like something crazy, but there should always be like witnesses or other evidence. There's no evidence for something 2 years ago. And like I was saying earlier, it seems politically motivated because like now that he's in the spotlight for things, someone's past, if they're not charged for it, if it wasn't a crime back then, they didn't care. I don't know. It's hypocritical for me to be like, oh, we should care now because it came up. Unless it's something crazy bad, that's just not really interesting to me.
Well, that's interesting, because obviously the Republican Party and Donald Trump are the party of lawfare. They're saying lawfare and stuff like that. So that's kind of so that's kind of ironic. That President Trump had been went up over the course of the last administration, over the course of his presidential election, with things like talking about like the Russia hoax, all of these sort of, fake investigations, the Justice Department is out to get me. Those are the sort of things that he was going to say. Mm. And then Donald Trump gets into office, and the first thing that he starts doing is using the Justice Department to deny people their fundamental due process rights, both procedural and substantive. So it's just absolutely crazy that is, the state of hypocrisy of the United States in the United States right now. But ultimately, what people need to understand about this news story is Mr. Garcia might be a bad guy. Nobody knows. Mm-hmm. Okay, he may. I doubt it. Just based on what I've read about what I've read in the media and stuff like that. But he may or may not have committed serious crimes and may even be needed, it may even be appropriate for him to be deported. The point is, we simply do not know. Mr. Garcia was not brought before a judge until right now, where these two charges were unveiled against him.
Yeah.
How this all went down is they put him on a plane, they sent him to El Salvador. Okay? So if all of this headache could have been avoided if they just would have followed the constitutional command and gave Mr. Garcia his due process rights and then let things play out.
Yeah. And I bet a lot of Republicans, I'm not meaning to be rude or kind of ignorant, or they don't know, but like, they're gonna hear trafficking and they're gonna think like child sex trafficking, and that's not what he was doing. A lot of people traffic migrants to the country, and that's what he was doing allegedly. So I feel like they're gonna be
Allegedly, yeah.
harsher than him on that, and it's not really fair. Like we're saying, like to even do that, bring it back from the past, all with Trump. And if it's Trump, costing the government millions of dollars with not being fair about his square footage of properties. We're doing the same thing now. Imagine how much money we had to spend to find him and then get him. You know what I mean? Like, what is throwing
Yeah.
money at a barrel for like a migrant trafficking case, which doesn't really hurt America. That probably helps it more than hurts it, economy wise, and how it helps us with workers and everything. It's just sad. It kind of shows that like during certain administrations will just waste money for like kind of like what we talk about a lot, cultural issues or just fake stuff. It's just dumb. Like this isn't something we should really be doing if we want to be fair and fair to our history. Kind of like we were talking about before. Like if a protest, someone was saying like, oh well, my family came in the right way, but people don't understand that back in the day when most of our family came in here, the right way was just showing up on a boat. There was no communication with the U.S. government before that they were coming. There was no, say, waiting for a work visa, waiting for a green card. They got on a boat in Italy or Ireland, Great Britain, and shipped their ass over here and showed up on Ellis Island. And that's why we were able to do what we would do. Change names. We had different laws back then. We wanted Americans to come in. Like Tony Soprano says, like they opened the floodgates to the workers. America knew we needed workers. So that helped us. We're still the same way now. Probably even worse. Back then, like there were rich people and people doing high-end jobs, but like we have a middle class in certain fields that like are not like in certain people just not going into those labor fields. That's kind of like separated now. We need more workers to help out with that.
You know, and another aspect of this case too that I think is interesting, and this is not even really even talking about the law at all, but like let's just for the sake of argument concede that Mr. Garcia did do these two things. Okay, uh, hasn't he been through enough? You
Yeah.
know, you know what I mean? They knocked out his door, put a bag over his head, put him on a plane, sent him to El Salvador in a mega torture prison.
Yeah, took him away
Where
from
he
his
was not
family.
denied access, took away from his family, didn't in a foreign country, and now all of a sudden he's brought back. Like, isn't that a punishment enough?
Yeah.
Enough, But again, this all just goes back to that Mr. Garcia should have been afforded his due process rights, and he should have been provided counsel. He should have been, all the full shebang, and then all of this could have been done more efficiently, constitutionally, and this all could have been avoided. But of course, our president doesn't believe in due process rights. He believes in mass deportations as quickly as possible to suit his agenda. So another thing I wanted to jump off of what you were talking about is it's like basically literally impossible to legally immigrate to the United States right now. Like,
Yeah.
like you. So my understanding is, let's say you're escaping gang violence in a country in South America, and you do that dangerous trip to Texas or to Baja California. You're trying to make your way into the United States. My understanding of like what happens is basically like you'll get a court date in like 5 to 10 years.
And
And
like,
you're not
I
providing
thought
an
they got rid
attorney.
of asylum, where they can't like claim asylum anymore.
I think there's certain restrictions they're trying to do. I don't know much about immigration law. It's not an area that I took in law school. But I have heard in the media and just from commentators that it's essentially impossible to legally immigrate into the United States because the system is just simply too broken. There's not enough immigration court judges.
Yeah.
These people are not provided counsel, so these people present like you're talking about, like that person on the street when we were at that No Kings protest, come in legally. People don't understand that that's not really a realistic option anymore
Hmm.
because the federal immigration system is so broken and it's more useful to the Republican Party as a live political issue that
But
they
no,
can keep recycling in
here's what
presidential
I'd argue.
elections.
If we were able to do it and let more people in, we probably let more people in back then. That like without computers, what's the issue now? Like it shouldn't be
The
like
issue now,
yeah, it shouldn't be that like oh it's an administrative issue. They just don't want people coming in, and like I was watching the news. Like there's been a lot of studies, you could look it up. How like some of the biggest people against immigrants are first generation immigrants, and like
yeah.
there's a psychological effect where like now that they're here, they don't want that happen to other people. You know what I mean? They feel like that they're kind of like since they're newer here, they're worried that oh they can get taken away. They don't want more people coming in, and there's other reasons for that too that they probably feel. But it's weird that like we shouldn't even have that, or even like fourth, third generation Italian, Irish people. They shouldn't have that. Like oh we shouldn't let more people in. Like our ancestors were in here, and now we have three generations of us, a huge family tree in America. You know what I mean? It's not like these people are coming in massive families. But go on.
Yeah, so you say, why do we have this issue, this administrative issue? They don't want people, they just don't want people coming in. You're absolutely correct. They don't want people coming in, so they created this massive administrative issue.
Hmm.
That they just don't go out there and say, "Hey, I really don't want black and brown people coming to the United States." They
Yeah.
don't say that. Okay? What they'll say is, we need to reduce the number of immigration judges. We need to, you know, um,
So
not provide
let me
these
know.
people
Let me know what's
counsel.
harder than it was in 1920. I mean, they were stamping books on Ellis Island and probably had a massive book collection of just all the people they were signing in, and then it worked. How is it harder now? It doesn't. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, you have to be
So
right.
my understanding is a lot of these are asylum cases.
Hmm.
Okay, so um, you present yourself to the border and you say, "I'm a Honduran citizen," and I'm just making stuff up.
Hmm.
My family owned a bakery and we refused to pay protection money for the gang and they killed my mom and here I am. Okay?
Yeah.
So like they don't just let you in when you tell them that story. Like the way the system's supposed to work is they like hand you a piece of paper and they let you in the United States temporarily
Yeah.
and then you go to a federal court and then you have to convince the judge that
Yeah.
your story is true and the judge can grant or deny you asylum.
Yeah.
There's
I'm just
several
saying that
different ways of
the whole
getting into.
system's messed up, because if we would have had the
Yeah,
same system back in the day, you know how long it would have took to get millions of Italians to go and be like, I just wanted to leave Mussolini, and you know what I mean, or like leave
right,
fascism. So like we didn't do that. We just let them in. So I'm saying like we should just let them in
right,
now and track it. Back then, like with this type of technology and security now, we should be able to understand things like that and like track people and like understand if they've been violent. I mean, we do it now with people, in other countries, and if they've committed crimes in other countries, we'll deport them. So like we already know that now, so we can just make sure it happens whenever they get in. Because I mean, I don't see an issue with it at
so
all, just letting people in.
what I'm in favor of is I'm pro immigration. Obviously, I would say my stance is pro orderly processing.
Yeah.
Okay, I want people to come to the United States. I want them to live happy lives. I want them to work with dignity, and I want them to, contribute to American society, become citizens if they want to, et cetera. I think immigration is an overwhelmingly positive thing for the United States. But
Hmm.
I do feel like that there is a need to um, know basics about the people that are coming in the United States.
Yeah. Agreed.
Name, where they're going to work, criminal record, basic stuff.
Mm.
And just so that we have an idea of who we are letting into the United States.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
and that system that I'm describing right now, the orderly processing of immigrants and bringing them in the United States, that costs money. That costs money, and these people don't want they don't want immigration, so they don't provide it money. They just let the system break.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds like they could have some system like TSA, where if you do like the TSA pre-check and this, they kind of already have security systems in place for certain things that they could just keep using for this or switch it over. Um, so it would be
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
there's there's got to be ways to modernize it, and I I know we've been talking about this for a while. I just want to say this, I feel so bad for those Afghan interpreters who were, who fought with the U.S. military.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they didn't get on those airplanes in Kabul when the United States left Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, they left Afghanistan, they went to different countries, and they flew to Mexico, and they showed up at the southern border, and they showed, here's my army paperwork. I'm an Afghan citizen, but here's my army paperwork. You gonna let me in? And some of them got in, some of them didn't.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like
No, that's
something
crazy.
needs to be done about immigration,
It does. And
orderly
like
processing and due process.
if you, people on the other side, they can't see it as like, oh, immigrants are bad. I mean, that's just how they see it, and they can't. You know what I mean? Is it hatred towards your own people? Is it your own self hatred? Is it your own ignorance that leads to like racism and other type of hatred? I don't know, but like you can't see it like these
Certain
people are bad. It can't be a competitive thing like that. Like we're all the same people. So I don't know.
Exactly. But there's just some people in this world, that, they feel like it's all or nothing. They feel like, the world's not big enough for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I got in the United States as an immigrant, so I got my job. I don't want you coming in now because that might take away my friend's job or, my son's job. Some people do think that narrowly.
Yeah. It's not fair because we got a big country with a lot of empty space. So let's go into a local topic one.
Yeah,
Excuse me. Which Tommy will be going
exactly.
over, which is about how the auditor reimbursed county for legal fees in the Beretta Township appeal.
Yeah. So I got a new name for Martha Yoder, Liam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got a new name for her. She's now missing money Martha.
That's a good one.
Missing money Mar. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, in August 2024, missing money Martha, her who is the Trumbull County auditor, she mistakenly transferred over $80,000 in Bezetta Township's tax revenue to a fraudulent bank account, despite obvious signs of it being a phishing email. So that went to the Court of Common Pleas, and Court of Common Pleas said they had to pay Bezetta, and Yoder appealed. So, um, what's so crazy about this is there's so much going on right now with lawsuits with the county, um, and just that the county they're involved with the lawsuit with this. They're involved with a lawsuit with the dam in Warren Township.
Mm-hmm.
There's various lawsuits revolving around other elected officials. There's a lot of lawsuits going around right now in Trumbull County.
That's fun.
Okay. Um, and I it's a lot of it is costing the county significant amounts of money
Mm-hmm.
in legal fees. Some of it is, the county is suing the metro parks along with Warren Township. So in many respects, it's like the county is suing um, the different part of
Itself,
county
yeah.
government. You know, and that's what struck me a lot about this news story. The county incurred so the auditor who is part of county government, she's not a commissioner, but she's in county government, okay, funded by tax money, okay, funded by tax money. So she is repaying the tax money that has been given to her that she used for this appeal. She's then repaying that back to the government. So like she's it doesn't really make sense because like so you have $500. The auditor has $500. The commissioners have $500.
Mm-hmm.
The commissioners give $250 to Martha Yoder, and then she spends that $250 on the appeal, and then $250 Martha gives back to county government. The county government as a whole is still out $250. You know what I mean? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
They're just moving money around here. It's very strange. It's just very, 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 very strange. The amount of lawsuits that's going on right now, as I just went on about, and just the fact that auditor is funded and spends that money and then reimburses the county, which funds her for the legal expenses, but then says that she reimburses, and somehow that's not like a net loss to the county. It's just very, very strange to me. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I just think this just needs to be over with. I think, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but, Bezetta should have been using two-factor authentication. Um,
Yeah.
the county government should have, not fallen for the phishing email. But this just needs to end. All these lawsuits need to end, and we just need to, go back into the business of actually administering the government in Trumbull County. But of course, you elect unqualified people like Missing Money Martha, and you're gonna get stuff like this.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's funny how like it should be the county's fault. They got the phishing emails from the state auditor and didn't do nothing about it. So this is funny.
Yeah,
These
and this
people
goes
how it
nothing.
gets to be.
You know, yeah, the township spent $11,371 in legal fees, administrative costs. You know what I mean? So, it's crazy, and they're going to continue to seek the full reimbursement. So, this is not over. This story's not over. This will be one we'll probably have an update in a couple of weeks as well.
Good to hear it. We'll go to a local topic too, which is unless you're good on that, which is Insights.
Yeah, I'm good. Yep, you're good.
All right, Insights health push to reopen Trumbull hospitals. Background: in March 2025, Insight Hospital and Medical Center in Trumbull ceased patient administrations due to issues stemming from a transition service agreement with Steward Healthcare. Despite challenges, Insight Health has expressed a strong commitment to reopening and revitalization of its facilities. Recent developments or Insight's legal dude, my words today. Representatives have reached,
You're good,
I
man.
can't speak, reached out to Trumbull County commissioners and Warren City leaders seeking support to reopen Trumbull Regional Medical Center and Hillside Rehab Hospital. A roundtable meeting is being planned to discuss reopening involving local officials and community stakeholders. Insight has applied for the necessary licenses and is working with the state officials, including Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost and Senator Bernie Moreno, to facilitate the process. The company has secured initial funding, receiving $200,000 last Friday, and is optimistic about the hospital's potential profitability. Because that's what hospitals are all about now, making money.
I was just gonna say
Especially when they're on the private side. And I'll say that it's interesting that once these hospitals, and for government, they did kind of fail a lot of these hospitals. Some of that's because of funding and lack of funding. That the private side just sees them as money making opportunities, and now hospitals, like healthcare as a whole, has risen a ton since it's been taken out of private side, public side as a whole, and just still some public side hospitals, but it's a lot more private than what it used to be. In Trumbull, like this place used to be the county hospital. So Trumbull County Commissioners, including Chairman Rick Hernandez and Commissioner Tony Bernard, have expressed cautious optimism and support for Insight's plan. Local officials are coordinating with state reps to expedite the licensing process and ensure the hospital successful reopening. Looking ahead, Insight's Health is focused on long-term sustainability and efficient operation of hospitals, aiming to restore essential healthcare services to the Warren community. The upcoming roundtable meeting will be a crucial step in aligning community support and finalizing plans for reopening. I think that's great. Like I said before, kind of we need these hospitals in our area. That's kind of why it was government ran, but like really only in Warren. We have St. Joe's in this place, Trumbull. So we kind of need that open. Some of them are far away from each other. Some of them have better facilities than the other. I know Trumbull has way better like laboratory facilities and radiation stuff like that, radiology, as well like X-rays and stuff. So getting this back open would be great. I've been there before. I know family members have been there before. So getting more hospitals out there is good. I don't think we'll get to a point where we'll have government hospitals again. We just don't pay as much taxes as we used to when we had those services. So anything's better than nothing. But kind of like what I was saying before, I don't like how much money these hospitals make. A lot of it is about how much profits they could be making. Some of these companies are basically like, not hedge funds, but companies that like to make money, and basically investment firms. A lot of that is just how much money you can make. What's your opinion, Tommy?
I'm right there with you, man. I think it's kind of disgusting, that they're talking about the hospital's profitability. I think that's it's a given. Like the purpose of a hospital is not to, is to not to make money. It's to, provide care to patients.
And
Okay. So
I do get
number one,
saying it, like he said community first, so I do get saying that like you kind of needed to make money to stay alive. But that's just when you're draining something so dry and you say, okay, if it's not under
yeah,
20% profitability, we're cutting it. If we're at
yeah,
5% profitability this year, my yacht's taking a hit. My booger sugar collection. It's just dumb, like for greed. Um, and
yeah. Yeah, no, like I get why the spokesman why they were saying this. Like they need the profitable the hospital because that's how they're currently funded. I just don't agree with the whole idea that that's how they should be funded.
yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
like, you know, I think they should be funded by the government. Whether that be through government-run hospitals like a French-style universal healthcare system, or like private insurance like Medicare for all, like a UK-style Medicare for all type system.
Mm,
Um, but that's obvious, though. Everyone knows my position on universal healthcare and stuff like that. But uh, I think this is overall like a positive step for the community. You got to keep in mind, we got a lot of economic development going on right now here. Actually, we got that Amazon warehouse that's coming in. We got that paper factory that's coming in, and hopefully that's going to lead to more and more people coming into this area.
yeah.
Hopefully, try to get some money moving, some economic development going. And as more and more people come, there's going to be, a need for this hospital reopening. Um, you know, we need two hospitals right now, but that need is only going to continue to grow
Hmm.
as these employers continue to open up opportunities for people to move here. So they're going to need that to reopen. They're going to need affordable housing. They're going all these sorts of infrastructure improvements are going to have to come here if we're truly going to, sort of revitalize this area. And I think this hospital opening back up is not only good for the current people that live here, but also for, um, future employers who may be interested in coming to the valley.
Agreed.
Anything else you wanted to add on that one?
Nope. I'm gonna keep going.
Oh, okay. So international news. So for those of you that don't know, I'm of course a massive politics nerd, but I'm also a massive foreign affairs nerd. I find it fascinating. I'm also a massive history nerd, so I like world politics, old politics, and current politics. So, of course, our big international news story is that Israel strikes Iran's nuclear sites and kills top generals. Iran retaliates with missile barrages. This has been ongoing. It's been actually incredibly hard to follow, just with the strikes going on. I've heard that Tehran was being evacuated. I heard that the Israelis have struck the public broadcasting agency in Iran, the state media. They've hit their oil facilities, they've hit their military facilities. So far, they have not actually attacked their political leadership yet. They've been sending out things telling people to leave, that they're going to start attacking military targets in crowded areas of Tehran, which is the capital of Iran. So just crazy what's going on. So on June 13th, 2025, this is where things started. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a series of airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities and military infrastructure. The strikes resulted in the deaths of several top military leaders. Um, uh, the Israeli military stated that the operation was aimed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. In response, Iran launched a barrage named Operation True Promise 3, firing over 150 ballistic missiles and 100 more drones into Israel that attacked cities like Tel Aviv, causing significant injuries.
Mm.
Um, I'm gonna skip over what I have written down for the deaths and the injuries. What I do have written down is 224, but is almost certainly higher than that right now.
Hmm.
1,500 injuries is almost certainly higher than that. Like I said, it's basically impossible to keep track of the sort of um, missile barrages that are going across the border.
Mm.
So, um, U.S. President Donald Trump denied American involvement in the attacks, but warned that any Iranian retaliation against the U.S. assets would be met with unprecedented force. The European Union has called for an emergency meeting, and leaders from France and Turkey are urging peace talks. France is also considering recognizing a Palestinian state as well.
Oh wow.
Um, G7 summit is happening right now in Canada. and the leaders are going to be expected to address the crisis there. So this is a crazy news story, and it's such a large story. It's almost hard to condense down to a podcast topic. Like I said, it's even hard to sort of track in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, what you have is you have Iranians launching a preempt. You have, excuse me, the Israelis launching a preemptive attack against Iran's nuclear facilities to try to halt these U.S.-led nuclear negotiations that are going on right now. Benjamin Netanyahu does not want these negotiations to succeed. He wants the Iranian nuclear program to be destroyed, not dealt with diplomatically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he did this. I think he's trying to sort of destroy the negotiations and force the United States into military action because Iran does not actually.
These are U.S. made missiles, though, probably, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're U.S. made missiles. They're U.S. fighter jets. They're all. Israel is one of the largest buyers of U.S. weapons, particularly for the size of their nation. But yeah, it is U.S. weapons, U.S. aircraft, etc. And they're trying to sabotage these peace talks. Now, to be absolutely clear, we had a workable peace. We had a workable peace framework with the Iran nuclear deal under President Obama, which which stopped the Iranians from being able to develop like weapons grade uranium. So Donald Trump got rid of that. We got rid of that. Did some attacks on Iran in his first term, and now here we are again with a second round of talks, largely trying to accomplish what the first talks acquired. What the first talks achieved.
And like if his first attack on Iran, that drone strike against the general, it should have worked, right? They were our buddies after that. Why were they making nukes anyway? Why are we afraid of them if a first drone strike didn't work?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, who would have thought that Donald Trump in his first term droning a hero of the Iranian military would make them not like us? Like who would have thought that would have been the case? But ultimately what I think what our listeners need to look out for this news story is there's one key fact, which is that Israel, while they have American fighters and they have American bombs, they do not possess the capability to destroy completely the Iranian nuclear program without the help of the United States. Yep. That's a fact. Okay. That is a fact. The United States, they have these massive bombs. They're called the Moab, the mother of all bomb. And it's like they launch it, like the C-130s that they fly around here.
Yep.
They launch it out of the back of that.
Yep.
Yeah. And it digs down deep, and it can go and penetrate those deep underground hardened bunkers. So sort of keep an eye on the moves that the Israelis are making. See if they're making moves. Are they doing this because they think someone else might do this, and that might force the United States to enter? Because I think that's ultimately their goal here.
And I will say, one of my coworkers was saying last night. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
This was on Twitter. They moved this was last night over at like 10 p.m. We moved 21 tankers from the west coast to the east coast. Like military style tanker refuelers. And I think they're going to go from, obviously the east coast to somewhere in Europe. And then what's going to be bombing shit and military. It'll be interesting. It's extremely dumb, my opinion, real quick, Tommy, because like we knew Iraq was really hard to invade. We couldn't get a stronghold in Afghanistan, and Iran's worse than both of those places. Like at least what I've heard territory-wise, and actually like trying to take control of places. Yeah. So like it's just I don't know. I really hope we don't go to war in this crap, but.
Well, yeah, same. And what's so stupid about it is let me just be absolutely clear. It is a fact. I think it would be very bad for the world, and it would be very bad for the United States and the Western world in general if Iran acquired a nuclear weapon. I don't think that could be allowed. I don't think that could be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. But ultimately, all the war hawks that talk about that, like Benjamin Netanyahu, they're talking about that. They're like, Iran can never be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. That's what they're saying. What they forget is that there was a deal under President Obama that stopped that and would have stopped this sort of cycle of escalation that we have been on with Iran for seemingly since the formation of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Like,
Yeah.
we need to find a workable path forward through diplomacy. Again, we already had that prevents Iran from developing a nuclear weapon,
Mm.
but also allows them to do things like, you know, develop their economy in exchange.
Yeah, and
That's what we need to
the
do.
history books will see that even if we do go to war, even if we don't. This is a major Trump dumb thing to do because it made no sense. He said, "Oh, I didn't like the terms and conditions. They were pretty good. Like we had watchdogs over them, and we were able to make sure they weren't making weapons grade uranium without bombing them or going to war." So I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. There's way, like you're saying,
Another
way more diplomatic ways to do it. I pet that cat.
another but another aspect of this news story is you have to remember that Benjamin Netanyahu, who is fighting, I shouldn't say fighting, he is perpetrating his genocide in Gaza, and
Yep.
now he's attacking the Iranians. Um, he is under bribery investigation and is facing charges in Israel. And as long as there is a conflict, as long as the genocide in Gaza continues, as long as the war in Iran continues, okay, he is able to avoid going to trial for those charges. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has a vested interest in not making peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And he has a vested interest in dragging the United States into this conflict. So keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him because he's going to be trying to line up checkers so the U.S. can only go one way towards a war with Iran.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Hopefully, I'm wrong. Please clip this. Please clip this. Please clip this in like 2 months and be like, "Oh,
If
look,
right.
Tommy, you were wrong. I want to be wrong."
Yeah, I agree too. I don't like. No one wants to go to war. No one our age really wants to either. Um, it's actually really crazy. You know, everyone I knew in the military is either out of it or they're doing like reserves and they're not really like heavy, like active duty. So no one wants to see that. All of the, like I'm saying, elders or older veterans, they don't want to see another war, especially anywhere in the Middle East, from what they experienced.
Right.
And we should learn from that. Like I said, like we don't need to be killing people. It's all about money, and um,
Yeah.
Vietnam protest did help. So if we keep protesting, it was interesting too. It's like a lot of the talks too. It's like the last time there were protests like this, that wasn't like racial. It was last like the Gulf War, the war protests during that time. So we got to keep doing it. Keep saying we don't that really don't agree with this. They see it as what it is. There's even people there that see it as it is. So we kind of have to do better.
You
Maybe
know,
same with the genocide in Gaza and everything that they're doing right now. Just because like just because our country's run by like the military industrial complex and a lot of that money gets pushed to whoever's going to be buying it at the time. We've given a lot of equipment to horrible countries like Saudi Arabia that have committed genocide in this decade, this century. So it's just we have to do better. Over the past decade in this century would be a proper wording for that.
if you, I history I think adds a lot to the conflict between the United States and Iran. So the United States overthrew a democratically elected government in Iran. Okay, we
Mm-hmm.
did that. So this guy, I forget his name, but he got elected through a free and fair election in Iran. He was a secular guy. He wasn't religious. He wasn't an Ayatollah, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing was, hey, I'm going to nationalize Iranian oil and give the money back to the people.
Yep.
Okay, so this was in the 50s, the 60s. Cold War. The United States and the United Kingdom, they got together and they overthrew that government and they installed the Shah of Iran. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
who was also secular but was also extremely corrupt. Okay, extremely corrupt, kind of like a typical despot leader. Maybe he's not like he's authoritarian and he's just sort of milking the country's coffers for all it's worth. But what he let what he gave the United States and what he gave the United Kingdom was he gave ExxonMobil and BP, he gave them drilling rights for Iran. Okay.
Yep.
And they put
Directly.
him in
Yep.
power. They put him in power. And
Shell.
that's what directly led to the Iranian Revolution and the Ayatollah and where things stand right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you think, that intervention in other countries' affairs is not. Sometimes I believe it is necessary, but it has to be thought through very, very, very
To me, Tommy,
seriously.
it's like
And
it's like if it only benefits for people. If you're doing it for yourself or for companies, why? You know what I mean?
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh yeah,
crazy.
I agree with that. Right. No, like if it you should definitely should not be intervening in a country because ExxonMobil wants you to secure drilling rights for them. If you're going to intervene in another country's affairs, it needs to be in the respect of they are actively plotting against us, or they are going to do something that affects international law. And when you counteract these sorts of regimes, it should be done through international collaboration and not unilaterally through the United States, if at all possible.
Yeah.
But generally, even before you get to any of this stuff, you shouldn't intervene if it doesn't affect your national security. That's number one. Okay. And number two, you should try diplomacy. Intervention, military action should always be reserved for the uh, the the worst case scenario. It should always be the worst case scenario. It should be a last resort. It should only be used, to stop an immediate threat to the United States, to stop the degradation of international law, or
And
to
like Tommy, if you think about it,
or defensively.
it's kind of like after the oil crisis of the 70s and 80s. They were just like the government got together and they were like, if we're gonna go to war, let's just go to war over this stuff. You know what I mean? It makes no
Yeah.
sense. Like if that's what our money was, and Bush was an oil tycoon, did make a ton of money through oil. A lot of people did. We have to be like smarter than that. It's not like there's people in power that keep just saying, okay, it's all about money to us. We actually have to elect people. And people fought Trump. People on the right thought Trump was that, but we, like people that were educated, knew Trump wasn't that because of all the stories of him screwing over the common man. If you think he's going to help you when he was screwing over his own contractors, building his golf courses, if he loves his golf courses so much, he should pay his contractors for full price. If it costs him more to do it, he should pay them for it. But he didn't, and we're seeing it now. If he was really truly for the common man, he would be telling Israel to stop this. He would be trying peace deals. He wouldn't have never gotten rid of Obama peace deal. We're at 9:40. I'm going to get to the last topic, but you can finish up real quick if you want.
Okay. So what you were saying is very interesting to me because what you were saying is I just described of the United States has been you just said the United States has been going to war for resources. I don't dispute that. Okay, I don't dispute that. Um, and I just described briefly all the sorts of things the United States should do to stop using military action and only use it as a last resort. The things I just described, um, diplomacy primarily, that is disfavored by people because there is a perverse incentive to go to war. Like General Eisenhower talked about this, the military-industrial complex. If you're making weapons,
Mm-hmm.
if you are in the arms business, okay, or if there is a arms manufacturer in your congressional district, all of a sudden, if dollars is king, if dollars is king, you all of a sudden don't want to avoid war. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
um, go through diplomatic channels. You don't want to negotiate. You want to rip up the Iranian nuclear agreement. Because you know you have this incentive that you have this incentive to further the arms manufacturing capabilities that are present in your district or that you yourself manufacture because you're a private company that gives large donations to a super PAC.
And I wonder, I wonder how much of our GDP is like military companies because they're big, like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. They're some of our bigger companies, and it's common that people even like buying their stocks now, which is crazy to me. You wouldn't see me buying a military like stock,
No.
or Oshkosh, like, but or they're just afraid that like because kind of like what we were talking about before, like America, we don't build as many cars as we used to. We just don't build as many like everything that we used to, like so like machines, appliances, a lot of stuff that we used to build industrial wise we don't, but we build military stuff now. So we always, like you're saying, like Eisenhower warned us about, is pushing the war because we know it's what makes us money. It's not really right. We should maybe switch to something else pretty quick, but it's gonna be hard to.
Yeah. Yeah. This hopefully there's some sort of peaceful solution to this.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we don't get involved. And if we do get involved, hopefully it's very, 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 very limited.
Agreed.
Okay?
And I know we're going later. Please like
And
and subscribe. We have a Facebook below us too. You could like us on Facebook and share on there too. That would be grateful help. Great help. Any last comments before we go into our last topic?
nope, I'm ready to move on.
All right. The last topic is just a crazy story and a sad one. He actually got caught today. I found, but it's about Minnesota Rep. Hortman and husband killed, Senator Hoffman, and his wife was outed
Wounded.
wounded. I see in politically motivated shooting. I knew they got shot too, but that word just threw me off. But this was Saturday, June 14th, between 2 and 3:30 a.m. CDT Central Time. The locations were in separate attacks in Brooklyn Park and Champlin, Minnesota. The victims were Representative Melissa Hortman, former Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2019 to 2025. She was 55. Her husband, who was also killed, Mark, was 58. The other senator that was hurt was Senator John Hoffman. He was 60, Minnesota State Senator. And his wife, Yvette. Oh, I knew how to say words, though. I know how to say that word, Tommy, huh? I know how to say Yvette. Let's go with Yvette Hoffman. They both got shot, but they're in the hospital, just wounded. The suspect was Vance Lufer I don't know how to say his last name. Boletier? Crazy name.
Yeah. Yeah.
His background is a former food service worker with unverified claims of military and private security experience. The motive was believed to be politically motivated, possibly linked to anti-abortion views. I saw that he had like a big list, details about the attacks. Hortman and husband, they were shot in their Brooklyn Park home. The Hoffmans, they were both shot multiple times in their Chaplin home. Yvette shielded their daughters, preventing further harm, which is crazy, and you have to be a sick person to do stuff like that, shoot at kids. Suspect's actions posed as a fellow police officer. Sorry, he posed as a police officer and fled on foot after the attacks. I was reading after, I think it was after the first attack, and even after the second attack, how like he got away. A lot of cops lived in these like neighborhoods too, so they were very confused when they thought that like someone did an attack, but it was a cop there. I think he shot at the police at one of the locations, and he even got away. But Manhunt was
Yeah, so
largest. Oh, you can go on. Sorry.
no, so I think it went down is he went to that the second place. He went to um
The Hoffman's
Senator
house.
Hoffman's
Yeah.
place and went in there and uh tried to kill them. And there was a cop that was in that area that knew that the representatives were attacked like 5 minutes away. So this cop just pulled up to this house, like I'm gonna do a wellness check.
Mm-hmm.
And that the shooter was walking out in his cop uniform. Okay, so like then the shooter got into a firefight with the cops. Okay, and then booked it and like ran through the house like out a back door through a golf course.
That's what I thought. Okay, that makes sense. The Manhunt was largest in Minnesota's history, including local, state, and federal agencies. A capture. He was apprehended Sunday evening in Shelby County without incident. I saw the lady who found him. She was backing out of her driveway and they saw someone in a culvert ditch, kind of like hiding. And she was on the phone with her dad, so that helped. And then she called the police because her dad helped her realize that might be him. His charges are second-degree murder, 2 counts, and attempted second-degree murder, 2 counts, federal murder, first-degree murder. Because that's one thing too. I thought these would be first-degree murder if he had a list and it was premeditated. The evidence.
He didn't kill the senators though.
Oh, I see. That's why I see. Thank you. The manifesto. It was found in his vehicle. It had 70 targets, including abortion rights activists and lawmakers. The target list, including names like Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, Representative Ilhan Omar, and Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, which is that's kind of just disgusting. in my opinion. Governor Tim Walz described the shootings as an act of targeted political violence. Senator Amy Klobuchar expressed her heartbreak and horror over the incident. National responses condemnation from political leaders across the spectrum, highlighting concerns over extremism and political violence. The current states, Hortman and her husband were fatally shot at a Brooklyn home, but Hoffman's both was recovering in stable conditions after surgeries. Investigations ongoing, with federal charges under consideration. What are you saying?
And there were federal charges. That was today.
Yeah, good. Overview of political violence. Left-wing activist. In the past, like overview of political violence in the past was left-wing activist shot Representative Steve Scalise at a congressional basketball game. Pizzagate, like I was telling Tommy about, right-wing activist shot up Comet Ping Pong, believing it to be a child sex trafficking operation because of conspiracy theories online. January 6th, according to the AP, citing research from 4 universities that looked at 3,500 extremists from 1948 to 2022, found that right-wing and Islamic terrorists were significantly more common than left-wing terrorists. And I wonder how much of that Islamic terrorist is kind of brought up because of like for post 9/11 fear against that kind of stuff. But it is true, and like we talk about time and time again, we see a lot of rallies. People, crazy right-wing people run people over at left-wing rallies and stuff like that. I just think it's crazy sad. And Senator, was he Senator Kathy Giffords when she got shot? So we have a big history of this, and I saw Kathy Giffords Foundation came out with a statement about it, which makes a lot of sense. We don't need this on either side. You know, me and Tommy talk a lot about stuff, but we don't really talk about craziness like this. And if you're so crazy that, you know, you're gonna shoot a senator and his kids, like, you need help and you should be a part of this American society. It reminds me a lot of, oh man, I don't know if it was Norway. I think it was. Me and Brandy were watching. There's a Netflix documentary about this mass shooting in Norway. And it was a huge deal because it never happens there. And he targeted a bunch of rich kids and senators' kids that go on an island every year to like the summer camp stuff. It reminds me a lot like that. It's kind of sick if you attack kids, or hurt, you know, their parents in front of their kids. It's just crazy to me. It shows the type of extremism that we have, and like me and Tommy talk a lot about too, that we know that like both sides have people that are mentally unstable, but like one side is open about getting help, and that's the left. The right kind of just hides it, which currently leads to stuff like this. Like we can go on lists with school shooters, because when it happened in Tennessee that there was a trans left-wing shooter, that was a big deal to the right, but there's 10 right-wing shooters that shoot up places in Buffalo because of racism and have racist manifestos of right-wing supremacy. There's been shootings like that all over the country. There's been shootings in churches and synagogues in Pittsburgh, and I think it was in Texas, for Baptist shooting in Texas. So it's like there's so many different stuff of this right-wing extremism. And these aren't left-wing people, like I'm saying, that are mad at the Catholic Church. This was a right-wing guy that was mad at his wife and shot up her church and killed everyone in there. Like, me and my coworker was saying today, like we just have a bad view of guns in America. Like so many Americans just don't understand that having certain things just hurt more people. And I'm all for having guns, but I'm an old school guy. I like revolvers. I like repeaters. I like bolt action rifles. I don't really think you need an AR. It takes the sport out of it. It's fun to shoot, but normally you don't buy a gun just to shoot at a practice range or a target range. That's how you scope it, and then you go out in the woods and shoot stuff with it. But if all your hobby is just going to a gun range and you like just feeling that, then okay, but understand that like maybe laws that make your hobby a little bit harder to do. It's crazy to me, Tommy, and think about this, right? I have to register a kayak in Ohio. But if I buy a gun in Ohio, I don't have to register it. I just go, you know what I mean? Like, think about that, guys. You have to register a kayak, and they're talking about things that, like, interrupt our hobbies. That kind of interrupts my hobby. I gotta go to the BMV, redo my kayak license every couple years. A canoe, things that are non-motorized, that are safer than guns. I bet money that you could take someone that doesn't know a kayak, and it's very hard for them to get hurt. if they're trained right. Just like guns too, but like
Yep.
it's crazy.
Oh, you almost crashed me out there. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Um, I really like how you frame that, because what you're dealing with these gun people. And to be absolutely clear, I support the Second Amendment. I believe you have the right to defend yourself, but I believe there needs to be reasonable regulations that are put in place to defend the rights of others to live without fear in a safe political society. So it's a balancing of rights issues, and right now certainly with weapons of war like AR-15s, so stuff like that, the balance has certainly shifted in the wrong direction.
Let's talk about
But
safety. I think it should be right. Where a city could say, you don't let's make pistols illegal in our city, because that means pistols and AR. Because most ARs are kind of like pistols. We could make ARs illegal, because a lot of people don't understand is that it's just unsafe. Like I live in an apartment. Anyone that lives in an apartment, even my old physics
yeah,
teacher, he would shoot guns or bows, shoot deer all the time. He's an awesome archer and shooter. He wouldn't use guns that would go through walls because he knew that, like, oh, if I shoot
yeah,
an AR, it's gonna kill my neighbor more than likely than me.
right,
That
yeah,
does happen, so we need to be like actually smart about this kind of thing. But go on, sorry.
yeah. No, fortunately, like I agree with you. I don't. I mean, I tend to. I think I favor reasonable regulation on gun. Like I think a good way to start. I support things like an AR-15 ban, high capacity magazine ban. I think generally a good place to start is, hey, 10-round magazine ban, like that you can have up to 10 rounds. Okay, and I think that would do a lot to reduce mass shootings. And if
Mm.
you accompany that with things like universal background checks, strong red flag laws,
And
hopefully
I would
you'd be
even
able
delegate
to.
Tommy, because like the thing with an AR ban, what they think is that we're gonna take their ARs. I would even be fine delegating, saying let's just not sell any new ones. We could grandfather the
Oh
old
yeah,
ones
yeah,
in, because I mean, we had an AR ban in the past. So grandfather in. If you want an AR, you have 2 months to buy one. For regulation might be a little bit higher to make sure the crazies aren't getting them too. But like this is your time's up, because like we do want to help
yeah,
people out in America. We want to make sure like our kids. And I always tell people. I think it was for Times came out with articles about like Sandy Hook. Oh no, sorry, this is Uvalde. There was some Sandy Hook in there too. The
yeah,
synagogue, and I don't think it was Christchurch, but it may have been a Christchurch massacre. And there was photos of this, and this the amount of just bloodshed that's created by one weapon, and how much fear. The difference between a shotgun and a repeater is that like I do have to cock it. Someone could grab someone if you're trying to shoot up a whole church while you're cocking your gun, and like a repeater mostly will have 10 shots at max. 7 is normal for a repeater. 44 mag was 7 shots out of a repeater. So it's like
yeah,
we have to realize that if you're going to give someone 30, 50 rounds, 100 rounds, how much damage that could do.
exactly. That's why I think just reducing the number of rounds is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Accompanied with strong mental health, enforcement when it comes to gun ownership.
Yep.
But the end of the day, though, why I was why I was why I was like cried a little bit, because like the way you phrased your response to this, of it really is that these people that want these 30-round clips, that they are viewing it as, I need this for like they value the convenience of having a large magazine at a shooting range. They value their own personal convenience more than the rights of a
Mm-hmm.
child to go to middle school without fear,
Well, it's
or
BS
the
fear
rights of a
mongering. I
parent
saw on
to.
Facebook a post of like this crazy guy following his 16-year-old son home. And they don't talk about why is he following your son home? Why is your 16-year-old son out in a truck at late at night, probably
Yeah,
pissing him off? But he shoots him when he comes on his property, tries to hit him. And they're like, this is why you need a
right.
30-round clip. And it's like a shotgun, a repeater, a pistol would do the same thing. Same thing. If you know anything
Right.
about guns, like an AR round doesn't expand that much once it hits someone. If you want expansion, you want a magnum shot. 44 out of a repeater, double expansion in someone rather than a pistol revolver. So like people that literally like guns don't know guns, because it's all about hitting someone, but it's also about stopping them, which is how much can that bullet expand inside of them? Because part of that force, they will absorb more force. So it makes no sense to me, and I get like wanting to shoot fast. Like it's dumb. Like it's just a hobby thing that like. And I've been to ranges. Who cares if you have to reload more with an AR? Most of the times you do anyway,
Exactly.
because like these cheap ass ARs, you're gonna be fucking expanding your barrel if you're loading up a whole 100 round clip, and then you're breaking your gun over time. Like there's videos you could look at people just messing up their ARs because of them exploding because the barrels get too hot. Like I don't know. Like it's something that we gotta talk on for people who have these guns and say like, hey, we're not taking them. Let's just stop selling them. You agree that there's a problem with people. They want to push it all to mental health, but they have to realize that that's part of the guns too. Because if the availability is there,
Yeah, no,
that's an issue. Just like with drugs, they understand it with
it's
drugs.
both. It's both.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's both. It's not just a mental health issue. Like that's part of it. Like I think everybody agrees that someone that has a serious mental health issue,
mm-hmm.
that they see things, etc. That they should not be allowed to own a firearm.
I
Okay, like
agree.
I think that might be what might be one of the few things that most people will agree on. But the problem is that's simply not enough to stop mass shootings in the United States. You also need to accompany that with reasonable but strong government regulation on firearms.
Agreed.
You said earlier. You said earlier. I just wanted to mention that you said you support like a ban like where you can't have pistols. That was they actually used to do that in several cities around the United States. That was struck
Cleveland's like
down
that. I
in
don't know if you know that.
uh
You
not
can't. You can't.
anymore.
Oh really?
Uh,
Oh, okay. I thought it
yeah,
was.
yeah. So I mean, so there was a case called what was it? DC versus Heller, which outlawed any sort of ban on like a type of weapon or not type of weapon, but like a law that like you had to have a handgun disassembled in your home. Like you can't do that,
Mm,
So I think you're gonna have some strong some legal issues, if you're looking at like handgun bans in cities and stuff like that
yeah. And
under
like
current Supreme
I
Court
always feel
case
like
law.
it doesn't really work on a city by city basis either. Because if you're gonna buy a handgun, you could just drive 20 minutes outside the city and buy a handgun still. I always said of people in Chicago, they go, why don't the bans work in Chicago? Well, like if I'm a gangbanger, if I'm thinking about doing something bad, not even being a gangbanger, if I'm thinking about shooting up a school, 10 minutes, 20-minute drive is not that much, guys. Like these people plan stuff, they're mentally crazy. Well, like, and we should learn from them. We should learn since Columbine and all of this nastiness that they plan and like want to do. So that's just my opinion on it.
No, and the only other thing I have to add to this is, all obviously, this sort of political violence is just unacceptable in the
Agreed.
United States of America. I have a lot of very, very, very strong opinions on politics, and I am not shy at all about voicing them. In fact, I rather enjoy doing it. But that's where this needs to stay. It needs to stay in the realm of healthy debate, of
Mm-hmm.
healthy disagreement. Maybe I even live with some name calling every once in a while. I was just saying, missing money, Martha. That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. But let's keep it to the issues, and let's keep it just out of the realm of political violence because that's just
And
simply
it's
not how things should operate in a free society and is not acceptable.
if I could talk to the leaders of the political evangelical groups in America that help push a lot of this anti-abortion crap, I would literally say like, you're killing people. You're getting people killed. So like, where's for pro-life? You know what I mean? Like, I understand back in the 70s and 80s, you guys were like, oh shit, Roe v. Wade, we gotta push against this. Took them 40 years, 30 years, but like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Look what it's doing. Your own side that's extreme and mentally messed up. And that's some of it too. It's kind of disingenuous to be like one side that's like, oh, we're gonna blame it on mental health, but we don't take mental health seriously. Well, then you're saying, if let's say it's just half and half of the political aisle in America is saying, oh, we know this is bad because of mental health, and a lot of it's our people, but we don't care. You know what I mean? It's disingenuous. They have to take it seriously too. I see it like we talked about all the time, like with the Epstein stuff. People will say things, but when it's their time to actually like do the healthy things, they will not do it. Just like with COVID. You know what I mean? They'll still keep drinking energy drinks every day, keep doing bad stuff. Do the actual things that you like preach and like practice what you preach. It's not that hard to me. And if you're saying that it's a mental health
Yeah.
thing, don't have a problem if your cousin or someone you know who you think's mentally down the drain has a guns, don't have a problem red flagging them. You know what I mean? Like that should be a bigger deal in places. I think Florida has red flag laws, and it's a red state, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
I don't know if
crazy.
they have it, but it's definitely a red state.
Yeah, I thought they did. You guys will have to look that up, but we're getting later anyway. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Make sure you like, sub, go on our Facebook below us. We'll be back here Thursday with our Healthy Living with me and Trevor, and then the Northeast Ohio Sports Show. Talk about Ferrari. They won Le Mans this weekend, so that's good to see. Anything on your end before we get going, Tommy?
Thank you. Nope. Thank y'all for listening to this special long episode. We got those 2 extra topics in for you. So, like I said, make sure you give us a like and a follow here on YouTube as well as Facebook. Make sure you check out my buddy Liam's other shows, and I will be back here on Monday to bullshit and talk about more political things.